Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview, where we take a look at the stories being followed in the current edition of the North Coast Journal. I'm your host, Dave Frank, and I'm joined this week by Thad Greenson, news editor, and Jennifer Fumiko Cahill, arts and features editor at the North Coast Journal. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Dave. How you doing?
How you doing?
Pretty good. Sunshine, blue skies, autumn chill, leaves falling, but it's a beautiful time to be up here on the North Coast. Hopefully you guys got out a little bit, enjoyed the weekend.
Did you just spontaneously haiku for a second?
Maybe. Maybe I'm inspired.
That counts.
That would be amazing. I probably got the syllables wrong because there's no way that would have been a coincidence otherwise. Let's just dive right in. I know we've got a lot to cover this week. You guys have each given a couple of articles of food for thought we can share with the community. Let's start with you, Thad. What's on the cover of this week's North Coast Journal?
Yeah, so on the physical cover of the paper, we have an image of a really beautiful painting by Analia Hillman, a Yurok artist and activist, which just fits really perfectly with the cover story that we have this week. So we were very, very grateful that she was willing to let us use it for the cover. And the cover story is a piece by it was a collaboration between the Fuller Project, a nonprofit journalism outfit, and The Guardian. It's a story by Lucy Sheriff, and it is looking at the Yurok tribes, real struggles with food insecurity and just dietary changes with the demise of salmon populations along the Klamath River.
So there's a key thread here in this article that talks about the impact of the dams and its effect on the food resources that the community there traditionally embraced for health. Can you kind of tease that out a little bit of how this is presented as the current really unfortunate state of health of that community, dietary health is impacted, and what they're looking to do about it?
Yeah, so the Yurok tribe has long kind of cast itself as a tribe of river people, that they live in harmony with the Klamath River and have depended on it for centuries as their primary diet source, a protein source, being salmon, and then also as an economic driver for the community, and also a key part of their cultural fabric. And so I think the story really does an excellent job of kind of outlining how, as the river has grown sicker and salmon populations have faltered, that just kind of the reverberating impacts that's had on the Yurok people, in everything from causing a really marked shift in diet, as I mentioned before, which has led to really disproportionate rates of obesity and diabetes and real tangible health impacts like that. But then is also, hampered the economic kind of viability of the fishery, and so there's a lot of Yurok people who depended on fish harvests as the primary source of income, and so that's been cut down, drastically back too. And then there's also a tie-in of just the way that providing salmon for one's family tied into kind of the culture of the Yurok people and their sense of self-worth and things like that. And so folks have definitely linked, kind of the impacts of the demise of the fishery to issues like substance use and a rash of suicides and things like that.
And so thanks for that background a little bit. I know there's a lot in the article. We're not going to cover everything. I encourage people to check it out because it's very informative. But there's this sense of also of what else can be done to sort of mitigate these impacts. So what kind of things does the article point out that are in the works or that the community there is looking to do?
Yeah, so the obvious and the biggest issue that the tribe and its people have been fighting for years now is dam removal. So getting those 4 dams off the Klamath River, which they hope will really jumpstart the restoration of the fishery and bring it back to health. And that's that process. So the physical process of dam removal is slated to begin in 2023. So that is just on the horizon. But then there are lots of kind of multi-layered efforts toward food sovereignty, diversifying food sources, becoming less they've already become necessarily less dependent on the river, but there's garden projects, there's movement to have a tribally run grocery store. I think the story starts out noting just how far away most of the Yurok reservation is from a classic grocery store. And so just kind of introducing new methods and new means to getting kind of healthy food and a variety of healthy foods back in Yurok diets.
And Secretary of Interior Deb Haaland is an advocate, but the article points out that she did come out here, but then she didn't really address this issue directly. So I know there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm sure that we'll hear and see more about it. Any last thoughts about this article?
Just on the point that you made about Deb Haaland's visit, it was such a kind of a wonderful moment, I think, for not just the Yurok tribe, but for Native people in Humboldt County, to have the nation's first, Native cabinet secretary, the Secretary of the Interior, come to Yurok territory and address some projects going on here. There was a great amount of disappointment that she didn't actually physically make it to the Klamath River to see firsthand the impacts of those dams, but she has been, vocally supportive of dam removal. And there was a moment on her visit here when apparently a few Yurok youth who are part of advocating kind of a water protector curriculum be introduced in local schools, actually kind of took a moment of her time and questioned her about what she was going to do about saving salmon on the Yurok. On the Klamath, which was a good moment. But I think, as you said, there's a lot of depth in the story and a lot of just kind of firsthand accounts of what the river and salmon particularly mean to the Yurok people. And I think it's well worth everybody checking out.
Fantastic. Thanks. We look forward to learning more about this as things progress in the community there. What else are you covering this week, North Coast Journal and News Beat?
Yeah, so this week we waded into kind of the escalating controversy surrounding the Humboldt County Auditor Controller's Office, which I think, when everything is kind of hunky-dory, it's one of those offices that few folks realize really exists or notice. It's kind of like, the brakes on your car when they're working well. You might take them for granted, but as soon as there's a problem, it becomes painfully apparent. And so, there's been controversy around the office for years now, but it seems to kind of be coming to a head in that we learned this week that the Humboldt County Civil Grand Jury is investigating some allegations of not necessarily malfeasance, but kind of ineptitude in the office. And the Fortuna Unified School District has issued a no confidence vote in the office, and the county's Workforce Development Board in a couple of days is considering doing the same. And so there's kind of a mounting discord about whether that office is fulfilling its core functions.
And so there's a quote in the article. I'm just going to paraphrase that this is a huge deal. That the impact is being felt deeply and broadly, and so like you said, it's been something that's been on everybody's radar for a while, but now does seem to be kind of escalating in both tone and coverage in the community. So I just wanted to ask you about what in the article that you presented here this week, what's next? So what's kind of like this? There's the no confidence claim, and there's sort of complaints, but what's happening to kind of resolve or at least highlight and bring to the community's attention what's going on here?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question, David, because the people can issue kind of no confidence votes in Auditor Controller Karen Paz Dominguez all they might want. She's an elected official, and so she's answerable to the electorate. And so, for instance, the Board of Supervisors, I think it was a couple months back now, but kind of approved an internal investigation of some of the allegations around what's going on with the office. But everybody other than the electorate is pretty much powerless. That ultimately this will come back to voters in I think next year, and they'll decide if they want to keep her in the office. But what's as far as what's next, there's like I said, the board is doing its own internal investigation. The county's workforce development board is meeting on Friday the 19th and is considering a no confidence vote. And before they took that step, they said they wanted to give Ms. Paz Dominguez the chance to show up at their meeting and answer questions and answer to some of the criticisms of her office. And so I think she indicated to another media outlet that she plans on doing that. So there might be another kind of robust discussion. She, even prior to being elected back in 2018 to her position, she kind of came in public light or into kind of popular conversation when she showed up at a Board of Supervisors meeting and addressed the board in public comment when she was an employee of the office, but not the elected official, saying that the office was kind of in a state of dysfunction and there were lots of problems and the county was really at risk of fraud because the financial protections that office is supposed to put as far as kind of double checking and being the oversight entity of the fiscal oversight entity of the county just weren't being fulfilled. And so she charged at the time that the office was so short staffed that it was essentially acting as kind of a rubber stamp for any invoices or any bills that needed to be paid by the county, and just really wasn't conducting any independent oversight. And so she was elected kind of, one would say, by the electorate with that mandate of coming in and reforming the office and instituting these new systems of oversight, more robust oversight. And she maintains that that's what she's been doing, and that a lot of what we're seeing is, as far as complaints publicly about her office's job performance, is other departments really struggling to come in line with new expectations, and maybe even pushing back a little bit and against being questioned about what their expenses are or why they're doing things a certain way. And that she also maintains that her office has been kind of perpetually short-staffed since even before she came on board, and that even though the Board of Supervisors have allocated some new positions and increased the department's budget, COVID and other issues have made it really hard to get up to fully staffed. But what we know for sure is that a lot of necessary deadlines for state audit, for audits that need to be done in order for state and federal agencies to conduct oversight and make sure that they can keep granting Humboldt County lots and lots of money for us to spend on various programs. Those documents aren't being prepared on time. And the office has kind of repeatedly missed deadlines for those, which not only the county needs for, say, like the Department of Health and Human Services or Public Works to get reimbursements, federal reimbursements for funds spent, but also outside entities need these documents too. And so that's where we get into issues with like the Fortuna Unified School District, which says that it hasn't received timely interest payments from the county for state funds that get channeled through their taxpayer funds that get channeled through the county to these districts. And for instance, First Five Humboldt to raise the alarm that because an audit from 2 years ago hasn't been done, they can't finish their end of year audits and risk other funding streams kind of running dry or at least being put on hold.
So it's pretty complicated, but generally speaking, it's possible that there's a couple of things going on simultaneously. One is that there's a reform-minded auditor controller who is claiming, understaffed, and that these things take time and energy that are necessary, and then also the impact of that is affecting entities within the county government and outside of the county government, funded by the county government and other local community funds. But also there's this other third party, this oversight, this auditing entity that is facing these delays. So there's a lot of moving parts. And it sounds like there's a meeting in a couple of days, Friday, I guess the 19th of this week, and where the Paz Dominguez will have an opportunity to say her piece. But you're saying that this is really ultimately going to just play out, to be decided by voters next election cycle ultimately.
we are all Karen Paz Dominguez's boss in that regard, as with any elected official. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens between now and then, and if if the county can get to a place where it is the auditor controller's office is working more harmoniously with other departments and kind of smooths out some of these things. But yeah, ultimately, if she's removed from office or stays in office, will be up to voters.
All right, on. Thank you for covering this really complicated and timely issue. We look forward to seeing further developments a little bit down the road.
Yeah, my pleasure.
How about you, Jennifer? What is going on the Arts and Features beat this week?
I have sad news for you.
Oh, no.
Yes. If you haven't already had or enjoyed for many years a Bob's Footlong chili dog, your time is running out. I mean, maybe not. We'll see. At least for this round of ownership, the Bob's Footlong legacy is a long, stain-filled trail of destroyed shirts and, stained front seats. But I may have done a little damage to my car, but I'm at least grateful that the aromatherapy of Bob's Footlong chili dog will remain in my car for a little while after that trip back from Fortuna. Bob's Footlong, for those who don't know or just want to feel it again, Bob's Footlong has been an iconic institution in Fortuna over on 12th Street for not 100 years, but 72. 72 years. Isn't that the length of Halley's Comet? Isn't it? Something?
It's a lot of footlongs.
It's a lot of footlongs. And also burgers and fries and milkshakes. And on Tuesdays, hush puppies. Yeah, I know. Hush puppies. Not enough places have hush puppies. And now we're going to have one less because Bob's Footlong is closing. On Friday the 19th. Bob's Footlong will be shutting its doors after the last inventory of the night goes out. I shudder to think what employees will be going through trying to keep up with demand until then and up to the last minute. I was there on a Friday afternoon between like a 3-ish, and people were coming in. It wasn't like a steady stream, it's off hours. But those sort of furtive mid-afternoon chili dog stops were still happening. I spoke to the owners about the history of Bob's Footlong and about their decision and what's next for the space and for the owners. But to take you back to its roots in Ferndale, it's the most like Eel River Valley thing ever, because this hot dog stand, as it started, and I can't quite narrow down, I need to find some pictures, whether this was a trailer or a truck. But originally it was a mobile food unit, and it was hauled up here from Los Angeles in order to sell food at the Humboldt County Fair.
Oh, wow.
So already we're deep in the history of the fair. And this is in the late 40s. That was, I think, 1948 or 49. But by 1949, it was a business, and it was still a mobile business, and it used to park over by the Fortuna movie theater, which you see me pointing this way like that's helpful, but I can't help it. Everything far away is over there. So anyway, it was over by the movie theater, and people were getting dogs there. And then at some point, the original Bob Broom, and a woman with maybe the best name I've read all week, Lula McClure. Bob Broom and Lula McClure eventually sold the business to the Smith family. And the Smiths, that would be, let me see, it's Ozzie and, I need to check, and Joanne. Ozzie and Joanne Smith bought Bob's and eventually passed it on to their son and his wife, that is Karen and Mike. And so it's been a multi-generational Smith business, but then a number of other owners have come in between. And eventually it came to the Morenos, Jose and Tanya Moreno. And that is in the brick and mortar shop that is now on 12th Street. And it's that orange and white striped building that you like try not to see as you're on your way out. But anyway, that was in 1967 that they moved in there. And since 1967, very little has changed in terms of the look and feel of Bob's. And in fact, the chili has not changed. Or at least the chili is the same as it was. I don't know about the in-between owners, but at some point, Tanya Moreno, when we were talking, she was saying, yeah, well, we had heard from the community that they want things to be the same as it was. Surprise, surprise. And so she went and got the chili recipe from Karen Smith, the original chili recipe that had been used since the Smith family owned it. And it's, if you've had it, it's a surprisingly mild chili. It is not heartburn chili. My husband, this should tell you something about his tastes, referred to it as subtle. He had a very
not a
subtle,
word generally used with chili.
No, he had a very subtle chili dog, the length of your forearm, and covered in cheese and raw onions. Anyway, it's the same chili recipe that they were using in the 50s and 60s, but of course, as Tanya told me with sort of a rueful laugh, people complained. They were like, "It's different. They've changed it."
Oh no!
Which is kind of fills my curiosity about restaurant nostalgia and Humble anyway. When people talk about places like, Parlatos or, Lazios and stuff, I sometimes wonder if those things came back exactly as they were, would you still want them exactly as they were? I don't know. But it's very easy to say like, oh, it used to be the most amazing thing, because nostalgia for food is very strong. It's the nostalgia for who we were in, 1967 when we were first getting those milkshakes too. Not me, okay? Specifically, but some people. But anyway, the restaurant was never really Tanya's dream, and they were hoping to kind of do it together as a couple, but things didn't work out in terms of her husband Jose's work and everything else. And you know how things are, like with basically work-life balance, it just did not gel for them. She's not a restaurant person. She is, however, confident, despite the fact that it's been really hard to do in the last, they've owned it for 3 years, and the last 2 have been during the pandemic. So it's been a tough row to hoe. But she was telling me that she feels like if somebody was dedicated to restaurant owning life, which is a very different life, it's a grind, but if you love it, it's the only one you want. If somebody was dedicated to that, there's already kind of a cult following for Bob's, and that she feels like somebody else could take it over. And it's for sale. If you have an extra $170,000 lying around and you are deeply into, onion rings and French fries, yes, this is what I would do with my lottery money. It is for sale. You can buy it, the whole business, right down to the logo with the little sausage dog on it. I love the look on that dog. He's sort of sly and sort of like, yeah, let's go get some chili dogs. I love that dog. I should probably go get some T-shirts. But it's an interesting story to me because it is it's a local institution. And this is the moment where we find out whether it goes away because it's no longer sort of fits our current needs, right? Does Fortuna need Bob's Footlong? We'll find out, because if somebody else takes it over and makes it work, then that's great. But it's hard to know, right, with these long-standing institutions, whether they can survive, the new world that they found themselves in.
Well, right on. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I know there's not a whole lot of time left for people to run down there and get a taste of the chili dog, but it's still possible.
Yeah, you can always look at the pictures at northcoastjournal.com and weep over them.
So, Jen, we have just a limited time left. I know there's another topic that we would love to squeeze in, but we really have just almost none. You want to just do a quick pitch?
Yes. So if you have ever wondered what it was like to circumambulate Mount Tamalpais, is that how we decided it said?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You have no idea
Nailed
what I was going to say. Yeah. Anyway, Dave Holfer, former poet laureate of the city of Eureka, He loves a hike. He loves poetry, and so following in poet Gary Snyder's footsteps and going around this storied range with his daughter was sort of a dream come true. And he trained for it by going on a lot of local hikes, and then finally completed the same route that Gary Snyder and other beat poets and some coterie of 1,000 people who once followed Snyder around the mountain went on. And it's kind of wonderful. And so it's a pleasure to read, and I strongly recommend that you read Snyder's work about the place and then read Dave's trip around it, and then maybe go yourself.
Very cool. Thank you for that quick summary. It's a really cool article. He talks about training hikes in Humboldt. He talks about the history of that hike, that epic hike, with beat poets like Allen Ginsberg, Jack Kerouac, Gary Snyder. Definitely worth the check. Thank you, Jennifer, so much for covering it.
It was a pleasure to have Dave come in and do it.
Right on. Well, thanks, everybody. That's about all the time we have for this week. Thank you both, Jennifer and Thad. Again, this was a really great week. We appreciate you guys.
Thanks you, Dave.
For having us.
Until next time, North Coast Journal is available on newsstands now. Pick one up. Stay informed. Also online anytime. Everybody out there, stay safe, stay informed, and have fun. Take care. Till next week. Bye, guys.